Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 3821, and today's date is January 19th, 2026, and the title of the episode is Central Bank Begins Financial Collapse Narrative. Trump admin says the central bank economy is rigged. Now, let me ask you a question. What if you could do more with your retirement funds than just hope for the best? With My Digital Money, you can build a self-directed IRA that goes beyond the usual, combining Bitcoin, gold, and silver for real peace of mind. Imagine Bitcoin's explosive growth, the steady strength of gold, and silver's wildcard potential all working together in one powerful account. While the market zigzags and headlines keep you guessing, these assets help shield your future from inflation and uncertainty. Why let your future hinge on just one bet? With My Digital Money, you're in control. We allow you to invest in crypto, gold, and silver all under one roof, balancing risk and reward and opening the door to bigger opportunities. Don't settle for ordinary. Build a more balanced, resilient portfolio today so you can retire with confidence. Visit My Digital Money and see how easy it is to diversify and protect your retirement today. That is mydigitalmoney.com, or just click the link in the description. Let's get right into the economic collapse financial news. Now, the deep state, the corrupt politicians, the private West Central Bank, the World Economic Forum, they're starting to realize that they never had any type of leverage whatsoever. Trump, the people of this country, we have all the leverage. Remember, they've created a globalist system, a central bank system, where basically all the manufacturing was moved out of this country, moved into other countries. And these countries then ship their products back into this country without any type of fee, penalty, nothing. They were able to just allow their products to be brought into the U.S. And any product that was going to their country, there were tariffs. It was a very lopsided system. And now Trump, since he does have leverage and most of the countries are shipping their products into this country, he's able to charge them a fee. And there's nothing the EU, China, Asian countries, Canada, the UK, Denmark, there's nothing they really can do, because they do not have the leverage. You see, it was lopsided. They charged the U.S. tariffs. We didn't charge them. Actually, they used loopholes. China used a loophole to get their products into this country. And now they're starting to realize, how do we fight back against the U.S.? Because what we see happening in the U.S. is that there's a parallel economic system that's being created. It's a tariff system, and it's forcing manufacturers back into the United States, which means we're not going to be able to ship products into the U.S. because most of the companies are going to say it's not worth it. We might as well just be in the U.S. And this is a major problem for them. And when the EU or China or any of these countries try to fight back, it's short-lived. It just doesn't work. And we could see already the EU is starting to bend a knee because they're realizing that Trump holds all the cards. So when he says, listen, I'm going to place 10% on the European nations, and if they don't do what I want them to do, it will go up to 25%. Yes, they can talk. Yes, they can bang their fists. Yes, they can scream and yell. But in the end, they will fold because they're going to realize that they just don't have the leverage. Wall Street Maverick put this out and said, European officials lean towards negotiating, not retaliating over Trump threat, per the New York Times. They did the math and realized Trump holds all the cards. Trump has far more options to retaliate than Europe. And that is absolutely true. So you could see at this point in time, the charade is over. Europe's negotiation charade is pure desperation. The 2025 National Security Strategy made it clear. America prioritizes hemispheric dominance and forces NATO allies to finally meet their 5% GDP defense commitments. Europe's refusal to spend on its own security for decades left them with zero leverage. Now they're scrambling because tariffs expose their reliance on U.S. markets. $1.2 trillion in annual EU-U.S. trade hangs in the balance. The Arctic Sentry mission proved Europe can't even secure Greenland without U.S. backing. This isn't about retaliation. It's about accountability. Weak allies fold when faced with real consequences. That's not holding cards. It's enforcing the rules they ignore. And that is absolutely true. And you can see that Trump, he holds all the cards when it comes to all these different countries. And they're panicking. They're scrambling right now because they don't know what to do. And think about it. As Trump pretty much shuts down the globalist system and then his parallel economic system gets stronger and stronger and stronger, you're going to see panic all across the world. Actually, when you start to look at China, China is now panicking. They don't have the leverage. And they don't have the ability to counter what Trump is doing right now. Think about what Trump has done with the trade deficit. He's basically shrunk it by a lot. Peter Sayong, PhD, put this out and said, America's trade deficit plunges by half to the smallest in nearly 2 decades. Chinese imports crashed, American exports grew, tariff inflation was absorbed by exporters, trillions of investment incoming. Instead of importing Chinese junk, we're importing factories. Absolutely. And when you look at the Biden era, it ended with a $130 billion trade deficit. Now it's just $29 billion. Trump's tariffs are doing exactly what he promised, and other countries are bending the knee just like he predicted. And that's absolutely true. That's what's happening right now. And you could see that the economy is starting to take off. Now, we need to understand something that's very, very important. Because when you look at the Biden administration and you look at the Biden economy, we were actually in a very, very deep recession. I know people don't want to believe that, but we were in a recession. This is why when Biden said, listen, I'm going to be handing off Trump a very strong economy, he did that on purpose because they thought the economy was going to basically implode on itself. They thought, oh, if he implemented tariffs and he starts to push his agenda where he's building a separate economic system, they thought because of the recession that they put the economy in, the entire thing would collapse. But he moved way too quick for them, and he put everything into place, and he got investments before they even knew what happened, and he already started to lower the price of oil because he's in line with Saudi Arabia, and Saudi Arabia actually said, all right, let's increase production, and all of a sudden oil started to come down and gas prices started to come down. So basically that gave the people some breathing room. Now, again, since we're in a deep recession, Trump has been bringing us out of that deep recession and giving the buying power back to the people. Now, the jobs that he said that he is now creating with having the manufacturers, companies come back to the U.S., well, they're just building the factories. Yes, there's construction jobs. Those are going to increase, but we're not going to see any of these jobs just yet because, again, he has to rebuild all of this. But what people are going to start to notice is that their buying power and more money is going to be in their pocket, even if they don't have the best of jobs. And I know people are saying, well, when are we going to see this? What's going on? It doesn't feel like the economy is getting better, but you have to remember, he's pulling us out of a deep, deep recession. And yes, I do believe that the government is going to look back in time, the BLS, and they're going to say, hey, by the way, yeah, you know what? There was a recession, and it started during the Biden administration. Trump pulled us out of the recession, and he made the economy absolutely incredible. So I do believe when people start to get the tax refunds this tax season and fuel prices start to go really far down, and the construction jobs are being created and people are able to purchase houses again, and all of a sudden construction picks up in the housing market, and you're going to start to see everything start to turn around. And I think it's going to happen is, hey, listen, if you're over 40 and planning to retire someday, the window to protect what you've built may be smaller than you realize. Here's a question most people never ask. Is your portfolio built for what's coming next? Many investors in their 40s and 50s discover they have little to no exposure to precious metals. That means their savings are largely tied to markets, policies, and paper assets, with very little protection if conditions change. As retirement moves from someday to on the horizon, protecting what you have already built becomes just as important as growing it. That's where Noble Gold Investments come in, helping investors reduce risk by adding physical gold to their portfolios. Right now may be a smart time to talk with Noble Gold Investments. No pressure, no sales gimmick, just clear answers and strategy built around our goals. Visit X22Gold.com and build your portfolio for the long term. That's X22Gold.com, or just click the link in the description. And remember, past performance may not be indicative of future results. Investing in precious metals involves risk. Consult your financial advisor before making investment decisions. Right in the beginning of the springtime here, that's going to be the initial phase. And as we go through the summer and into the fall, it's really going to pick up steam. And you're going to see a lot of construction being built. Remember, at this point in time, yes, the investments are coming in. Yes, there's permits that are being applied. Yes, they're planning the manufacturing plants, but they're going to start to build them now. And they're going to build them pretty darn quickly. And you're going to see a lot of jobs that are going to be posted, and a lot of people are going to get jobs. And there'll be jobs being posted for when the manufacturers, the plants are actually finished. So I do believe probably in the summer to the fall area time frame, that's when it's really going to start to pick up. But the numbers look absolutely amazing and everything is all set up. Remember, Trump, he built the foundation. And when you really look at this, you could see that the GDP right now is at 5.3% for the fourth quarter. But the growth is coming almost entirely from the productive private sector, not the government. Peter Sayong, PhD, responds to AJ and Tony, PhD, and says 5.3% growth while cutting 2 million government workers and illegals. Think about what Trump just did. Think about all the jobs that are being created in the private sector. He's now transitioning us from a government-based system into a private-based system. Remember, the government doesn't produce anything. Actually, the people of this country continually pay for those government workers that do absolutely nothing. And they have to continually borrow and borrow and borrow to pay for all these workers. As Trump cuts the government workers and the private sector now is picking up the jobs, the people of this country do not have to pay for it. Remember, this all goes in line with the new parallel economic system. Think about how this works. The people in the private sector are getting the jobs. The government jobs are being slashed by a lot, which means we don't have to borrow that much money, which means if we're not borrowing the tariff money that's coming in, we don't need to use that much tariff money to pay for all these jobs. You see how this works? And then as time goes on and you receive your buying power because we don't have to pay for all these jobs, well, that means we don't need to collect the income tax from the people of this country. Actually, the tariffs will be able to pay for the income taxes temporarily right now because eventually what's going to happen, there'll be no income taxes. The money to support the government will come directly from the tariffs. But Trump has to slowly but surely wean us off the central bank system. And what he's been doing, he's been working in reverse of what the central bank did when it came into power in 1913. When it came into power in 1913, they implemented the central bank system. They implemented the IRS. They told everyone, hey, we're just going to collect taxes from the wealthy. Everyone was saying, yeah, that's great. Actually, if you look at the strategy today and you look at like Mamdani and the rest, hey, we're only going to tax the wealthy. It's the same stupid strategy. It doesn't work because everyone gets taxed in the end. Trump is reversing that. He's going to start removing the taxes from the lower to middle class people. And you remember the central bank started at the wealthy people and worked their way down. Trump is working from the bottom, working his way up, which means that people are going to be absolutely happy when the income tax is removed, which means they're going to have a lot more money in their pocket. And from fuel prices going down, tax refunds, and no income tax, people are going to say, this is absolutely incredible. And what are they going to do? Well, some of it is going to go into savings, probably, hopefully. Some of it might pay off their credit card. Some of it might be put right back into the economy, and they might be able to do the things they always wanted to do. Maybe purchase a house or refurbish a house or buy furniture or buy a new car. And that's going to go back into the economy, which is going to build the economy. So what we see happening right now is Trump is reversing everything the deep state central bankers have done. And when you look at gas, oil, remember, they didn't want drilling in this country because, again, if you flooded the market with oil, what happens to the petrodollar? Ooh, that's not a good thing. So what is Trump doing? Well, he wants to drill, baby, drill, baby, drill. Why? Because he doesn't care about the petrodollar, because he's bringing us back to sound money. Actually, he's destroying the petrodollar. That's what he's doing right now. Secretary Doug Burgum says, map, baby, map. USGS just identified 28.3 trillion cubic feet of gas and 1.6 billion barrels of previously undiscovered oil in the Permian Basin. Advanced technology unlocking America's balance sheet. And yes, we're going to see more and more drilling in this country. And what are we going to see? We're going to see that everything is going to be turning around. Now, the other thing that's very interesting is that the New York Stock Exchange is planning to launch a platform enabling 24/7 trading of U.S. listed equities and ETFs. Now, think about it. Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, that is traded 24/7. And now it looks like the New York Stock Exchange is now coming into the fold. But Trump, he pretty much let everyone know that there's another stock exchange that is coming into view, and that is the one in Texas. And Trump, he put this out and said, building a new New York Stock Exchange in Dallas is an unbelievably bad thing for New York. I can't believe they would let this happen. A big test for the new mayor of New York City. That's Mamdani. And when you look at this, we have one in Chicago. We're going to have one in now Dallas. And yes, this is going to decentralize the entire stock exchange. And actually, the New York City mayor now is going to say, whoa, why is this happening? What's going on here? Are the fees too high? Are the rents too high? Too many regulations in New York? Most likely all the above. And Trump is letting him know, hey, look, you're going to be losing the stock exchange, and there's going to be another one in Dallas, which will actually add a little competition, and we'll see how this all plays out in the end. I do believe Trump is now decentralizing the entire system. Now, the other thing that's happening right now is that we could see that there's all eyes on the Federal Reserve. Trump is showing the American people that something's going on there. There's fraud. And then we have the Trump administration out there letting everyone know that the Fed, well, it looks like it's knee deep in fraud or criminal activity. Unusual Whales put this out and said, Scott Bessent says the Fed is now losing $100 billion a year with no accountability. I do believe in the end, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, along with Congress, once we get control of Congress, I do believe we'll be looking into the Federal Reserve, and we're going to find out exactly what they've been doing. And this is something they do not want to happen. And I said this many times before, and I do believe these central bankers, they will try to bring down the financial system. Now, remember, they were going to bring down the financial system no matter what. Actually, they set it up where it was going to collapse under Trump because they thought, hey, by the way, this is a strong economy actually when we're in a deep recession, and Trump will never be able to create the parallel economic system. He'll never be able to bring investment in here, and the system would just collapse under his administration. But the opposite happened now. So now they have to figure out a different way to approach the collapse. And what's very interesting, and this is not satire, this is coming from the Times. And once again, it's not a joke, it's a true article. And let me just read the headline and a portion of it. Bank of England must plan for a financial crisis sparked by aliens. Yes, you read that right. You heard that right. I read that. And yes, they're talking about aliens. Now, I do believe this is probably not the real narrative that they're going to be going with, but they're going to try to convince people that something like this might occur and we might have bank runs. And I do believe what they're most likely going to try to do is probably use a cyber attack. Remember, their entire mission right now is to basically reset the entire system. That's why back in 2020, during the beginning of COVID, we had Klaus Schwab, this is Prince Charles at the time, telling everyone that this was the perfect time for the Great Reset. And they thought, oh, this is going to be great. With the pandemic, people will stay in their house. They will become sick. They will die off. We'll have a population that is shrinking. Since there is no economic system that is operational right now, it will start to implode on itself. The entire economic system will implode, and we'll be able to usher in the new system with the central bank digital currency, the green new scam, you name it. Well, it looks like that was shut down completely. So they couldn't kick it off. So the only thing they have left right now is a war. And if you look at central banks throughout history, every time the central bank system comes to its end, they have to reset it. And they usually use a war to do this. Why? Because you use the central bank to pay for the war, and you just put the central bank in overdrive, and you reduce the population. And then when it's all said and done, there's not that many people that are going to object to the new system, so they're able to implement the new system. And when the new system comes into play, what happens? You have to borrow the money again from the central bank to rebuild the infrastructure and everything else. So that's what the central bank actually does. They always win in the end. And this article says the following. A former analyst at the central bank has urged Governor Andrew Bailey to put contingencies in place to prevent collapse if alien life is confirmed. The Bank of England must plan for a financial crisis being triggered by an official announcement confirming the existence of alien life, one of its former policy experts has claimed. Helen McCaw served as a senior analyst in financial security in the UK's central bank, preparing for events that could impact the economy. She has now written to Andrew Bailey, the bank's governor, urging him to organize contingencies for the possibility that the White House may one day confirm we are not alone in the universe. McCaw, a Cambridge graduate, believes a declaration of that magnitude would send shockwaves through the markets and could trigger bank collapses and civil unrest. Now, think about this. Think about what they're saying right now. Do you really think by letting everyone know that there is alien life that people would just run to the banks and try to get as much money as possible? I don't know. It doesn't seem plausible. Or are they planning contingencies for something very, very different? Maybe they're planning contingencies for some type of cyber attack, which makes a little bit more sense. Because if there is a cyber attack and people can't get their money, yes, there would be civil unrest. People would run to the bank and try to get their money. Because again, what would be the purpose of a cyber attack? It would be to bring us to World War III. You see, you have one side, which is the deep, dark, entrenched enemy that is trying to bring us to war, which will cover up all their crimes and try to reset the system. And then you have Trump and his administration and the people of this country and the people of the world who do not want to go to war, who want a system that works for them. And that's what Trump is building right now. He's building a system that works for the people of this country. And as people start to realize this, it's going to spread across the globe. And this is something the central bankers do not want. They don't want people to understand that, hey, you can operate, you can function with the central bank. Actually, without the central bank, your lives are about 1,000 times better because you will not be in a debt system. You will be in an income system. So basically, your hard-earned labor won't have to go to the central bank system and to pay for all these fraud programs that they put into place. So the whole system is rigged. The whole system is fake. And it was started in 1913. And you can see already from Scott Bessent, he's letting everyone know that the Fed is losing $100 billion. There's no accountability. And Deputy Secretary Jim O'Neill of HHS says the American economy does not work the way we were taught. You pay taxes, you pay health insurance premiums, but where does the money go? A lot of it goes to fraud, politics, illegal immigrants, and corporations that do nothing for you. The system is rigged. Take it to the next level. Take it to the level where the central bank came into existence in 1913. We were taught a certain way. This is a debt-based system, and this is normal. Inflation is normal. You paying taxes is normal. How else would the government be able to function without that? That's why they got rid of the tariff system. Remember, the central bank system and the tariff system, they really can't coexist. Because if people realize that the tariff system brings in trillions of dollars, people say, why are we borrowing from the central bank system? It makes no sense whatsoever. So what they do is when the central bank comes into existence, like it did in 1913, remember this is the third one in this country, they start to remove the tariffs. Actually, when you get rid of the central bank like Andrew Jackson did, you start to increase the tariffs. And this is exactly what Trump is doing right now, even though the central bank system is still there. The reason why he's doing it is because, again, the central bank has been here for a very, very long time, and he has to transition us off of that system onto the new system. So you just can't throw a switch and say, everyone, we're just going to the new system. It would be chaos. It would be a disaster. He wants everyone to keep their wealth. And he needs time for the alternative currencies like gold and silver and Bitcoin to increase in value so we can basically revalue our entire system and then audit the entire system. You see, everything has been planned out. Everything has been set so everything will work out in the end for the American people and not work out for the central bank system. So the central bankers, they've already started their financial collapse narrative. And at this point in time, Trump's engine that he's building, the tariff engine, is getting stronger and stronger every single day, which means it's going to be very, very difficult for the deep state players to actually collapse the United States economy. They might be able to do it in Europe, most likely, because, again, they're full central bank system. But here in the United States, as Trump builds this economic powerhouse, and it's not just tariffs, it's the sale of oil, it's the sale of technology, it's the sale of the gold card. So this is going to be a very, very powerful system. And we can add other things onto this, but this is going to be a very, very powerful system. And it's going to overshadow the central bank system. So they will try, but in the end, it's all going to fail, just like everything else. Because who has the leverage? Trump and we the people do. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.